A quick analysis of what's gone on in the British elections vis-a-vis Muslims. So, Jeremy Corbyn obviously has been devastated in the elections, and Muslims come out with a really bad end of this because obviously the amount of Islamophobia within the Conservative Party. How did we get there? Well, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to work this out. Obviously, racism is on the rise, Islamophobia being the forefront of that racism. That's organised, that's planned, and Muslims have allowed that to fester within society. They have done pretty much close to nothing to have an organised challenge against Islamophobia. They've not set up stalls within town centres, they've not opened their mosques up for open days, they've not funded organisations to challenge the media, they've not done anything that could possibly be considered a fight back against the massive $1 million Islamophobia machine that is going on. They pretty much just got on with their lives and hoped that it would go away, and it hasn't. As far as the elections are concerned, you got a guy called Jeremy Corbyn who, by the looks of it, was a decent guy. He was a nice guy. Didn't seem to have, anything about him that was particularly wrong or evil. You look back at his history, he was a pretty honourable guy. But he was weak, and his weakness meant that he was never ever really going to be a champion for the downtrodden or for the oppressed. I know he's got some sort of history with fighting racism in the past, but it was typical kind of liberal left kind of weak response to racism within acceptable parameters. I mean, look how he watched tens of thousands of his own party get purged as anti-Semites and did nothing about it. I mean, that just shows how weak this guy was. He allowed that purging. He allowed people like Ken Livingstone to be purged. He didn't get George Galloway back in, who would have been a great guy to have on the team. All of the things that he really could have done, he could have forced through if he wanted to. If he was smart, if he had some more guts, he could have got done, but he didn't get any of those things done. In fact, he just presided over the complete wipeout of the pro-Palestinian element within the Labour Party, and didn't even raise his voice. Disgraceful in that way. So he himself wasn't a great leader. He was a good man, is what you could say, but he wasn't a great leader. But he was the best that we had. Yeah, as in he didn't hate Muslims, so let's go for him. So Muslims then were already in a bind. What you had was a political party that was being purged of any element that could ever stand up to the Israeli lobby within the party, and Muslims, because they hadn't joined the political party, they hadn't involved themselves with any political party, the Tories or the Conservatives, were as always spectators in their own demise. They didn't do anything to help these guys who were being purged. They weren't in the fight, and even when these people got kicked out, they didn't help those who were in the fight and then got kicked out. Let me give you an example of how pathetic it got. The people who got kicked out, the 1,000 members who got kicked out, an organisation was set up to support them. It was called Law. And guess who ran it? More Jewish Zionists. So these people went straight. I mean, obviously they call themselves pro-Palestinian, Jewish Zionists, but whatever they were. But in effect, they ended up purging even more people from the very group set up to protect them. So you can see how what a genius move on their part, huh? And what a pathetic indictment on the Muslims. They didn't even organise to stand up and start a campaign to help the people being purged in their name. It just shows how incompetent we were from start to finish. Anyway, we didn't join, so we weren't in the fight. Now let me just give you an example of joining and being in the fight. Saida Varsi, I don't want to hear a word against that girl, right? Incompetent Muslims don't do nothing in the UK, and now they're whining about someone who did. She got into power. She left the Tory party over their stand on Palestine, and then what did she do? She was the one who was one of the forefront people who said there's Islamophobia in the Tory party. That weaponised the defence of Corbyn's supporters against the Tory party when they were talking about anti-Semitism within the Labour Party. They gave a counter narrative, they gave a counter move. It was because of her. There's one group I think that stood out, shone out, with another great counter move. That was the MCB by calling out Islamophobia within the Labour Party. Yeah, and that again was a genius move. But tiny group, underfunded, no way they could have taken on the massive machine against them, because the rest of the Muslims didn't involve themselves. The other organisations didn't involve themselves. The mosques didn't involve themselves, as usual, sitting there debating about, if nail varnish is haram. You get a debate on that, watch, be packed out. People were acting as if their lives depended on it. And what their lives actually do depend on, oh no bruv, they ain't got time, just give up, mate. Anyway, but that meant by the time it came to elections, this disorganised rabble, the Muslims, got to vote. Their vote is not enough. You're not 50% of the population, guys. Wake up. What did you think, that your vote was just going to turn the whole game around? You hadn't done nothing to tackle the Islamophobia that Boris Johnson played into. You didn't do nothing to help the people that were fighting for your rights within the Labour Party, that the Zionists ended up completely culling. And now you want to turn up on a polling station and go, oh, what's the point of voting? Look, it didn't get me anywhere. Well done. It reminds me of the old Iraq War. Muslims turned up on a Sunday, went for a half-an-hour march, and then wondered why it didn't stop the war. Really, that's the net outcome of your work, and now you're going to give up because you didn't do anything, because your Sunday stroll on a sunny day didn't turn out in your favour. Sometimes you can't make it up, and then you got these pundits and these groups going, oh, see, I told you politics didn't work. Well done. Yeah, it don't work if you don't do anything. Nothing works if you don't do anything, guys. Nothing. Food doesn't cut, water doesn't come to your lips by just stretching out your hand, does it? You couldn't make it up. As Allah says in the Quran, work. Those who want to work. It's one thing the Muslims aren't doing. Anyway, the only good thing that's come out of this is the fact that the left, who have been the chief forefront of defending Jews, claiming their victimhood was greater than everyone else's, shutting down any debate about how British Jews were mistreated, helping and aiding Israel by claiming it's anti-Semitism, saying the most illogical, irrational, dumb arguments that even some Muslims are picking up. Zionism and Judaism have nothing to do with each other. Really, guys? So how comes Israel's in Jerusalem and not in the North Pole? If it's nothing to do with Judaism, if it's nothing to do with Jews, Jews and Zionists is completely different. Really? So why have you got Star of David on the Israeli flag and not, I don't know, the cross? If they're not related at all, like the left keep telling us, why is that? Please help, please get me. Why do only Jews get to live in Israel and not, I don't know, why can't I get citizenship? If it's nothing to do with Jews, as the left keep telling me. In other words, they did everything to whitewash and make invisible Jewish Zionists within the West. Yeah, they said stuff about Jewish Zionists in Israel, but in the left, they were untouchable. And it was the Western Jewish Zionists that stabbed them in the back. And that was a silver lining, because a lot of people woke up and they said, whoa, what Muslims have been suffering due to Islamophobia by the Jewish community, Jewish Zionist community in the West, that was shut down. We were never allowed to talk about it because, guess what? That's anti-Semitic. Oh, it's anti-Semitism, bro. You can't talk about, it's nothing to do with Jews. Really, it's nothing to do with Jews. So when Chief Rabbi, endorses Netanyahu, Chief Rabbi of England, it's nothing to do with Jews. So what's he Chief Rabbi of? The Muslims? Now, you with me? So our oppression was always made invisible, institutionalized, and by challenging it, we were bad people. We were racist for challenging the racism against us. See how diabolical that was? But that's what the left allowed. That's what the left endorsed. That's what the left pushed on us. And because they were less Islamophobic than the right, they're the only ones we had. They're the only friends we had. So we just shut up and go, all right, we'll tell your pathetic narrative. But now the left got done over themselves. Because as soon as they went a bit pro-Palestinian, and it could have made a difference, when they're pro-Palestinian and they go on a march and it doesn't make a difference, then okay, they're allowed. But get a leader that's pro-Palestinian, then it'll make a difference. And the Jewish Zionists weren't going to allow that. They stabbed him to death. And the other thing that was fascinating was the constant narrative about anti-Semitism in Labour dominated the media headlines, which said to a lot of people, how did 0.10% of the population get that much media attention? The power of Jewish Zionists in the media started to be questioned. They're the two things that really came out of it. The left, or many in the left, finally said, whoa, what happened to us there? The chosen race that we've always protected were the very people who did us over. I know a lot of them will still be in denial. A lot of them saying, no, bro, blah, 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 whatever. And there were some Jews, obviously, that stood up for Jeremy Corbyn. But clearly, it was not the powerful ones that could have made a difference, because guess what? The headlines weren't dominated by that, were they? They weren't dominated by, how the most powerful, representative body. Remember, these ain't powerful Jews who are not representative. Jews, they represent Jews. Jews elect these people. Jews back these people. Most Jews are Zionists. Yeah? They always go, oh, not all Jews are Zionists. Yeah, true, but most are, mate. So that was very eye-opening to the British public. Forget the Muslims. Muslims are asleep, but to the British public, that was very eye-opening to let them see just exactly how much power this minority group actually have. Now, it's the only silver lining. Now, it doesn't make a difference, because that silver lining is nothing. It's too little too late. But it is a silver lining in that it gave some insight as to how powerful this invisible hand is, because these people remain invisible unless they absolutely have to show their hand. They'll attack via other means. They never show their faces normally. But now they're powerful enough to do so, and people are seeing it. But as far as the Muslims are concerned, it was too little too late. They didn't do much, and as per normal, they got what they deserved, which was they didn't do nothing, they got nothing. And they're going to get even worse in the coming months and years unless they change. That's my analysis. I'd like to hear your comments.